Here are 10 things that you need to fix in order to get lean and shredded and achieve the physique that a lot of you guys want, essentially. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the fundamentals and the basics because you and I both know that you need to be in a calorie deficit, training hard in the gym to preserve muscle mass and build new muscle mass, preferably hitting your step count every single day and eating whole foods, right? But I will include the ones that are extremely important. Okay, so number one is going to be eating in a slight calorie deficit and increasing the protein, right? The reason I'm including this, even though you and I both already know, is because it doesn't matter what you're doing on this list. If you aren't in a calorie deficit or an energy deficit, you will not be losing the weight, right? It's as simple as. So that's the first thing you need to make sure you're doing if you actually want to get lean, okay? And the reason we increase the protein is, like I said, because a lot of people make the mistake of going too aggressive on their deficits and they end up just losing muscle mass. They look flat, they feel weak, they get ill, they might even get injured. And, you're just more at risk of those things if you aren't actually doing it in a sustainable and proper way. And I always say this, but you will be so much more successful on your fat loss journey and getting leaner when you start viewing nutrition as something that's there to help you, something that's there to make you feel your best, perform your best, and help you get closer to those goals, instead of looking at it as a number that's either going to make you lose or gain weight. Number two is stop identifying yourself as inconsistent, right? When you focus on all the reasons why you can't get something done, you focus on the negatives, you start to reinforce those own beliefs into your own mind, which will in turn create more of that action, right? Which is being inconsistent, not getting it done, making excuses for yourself. So what you have to do is you just have to be really intentional and put a plan in place on exactly how many days you're going to train after XYZ. So you can say, I'm going to train after this event, right? So you can be prepared and you know exactly what's going to happen. So there's no room to procrastinate. And once you do that and you have a structure in place and you get specific, right, it's going to be a whole lot easier to follow through. Number three is strength training and progressive overload, right? This is another one that you and I both know about, but I just have to include it because it is so essential. And a lot of people actually disregard how important it is. But not only does it allow you to get stronger, preserve your current muscle mass and build new muscle tissue, right? And there's tons of health benefits in doing that alone. But it's also going to help you getting leaner and actually losing fat, right? Because muscle mass is metabolic. So the more muscle mass you have, the more you're actually going to burn at rest, okay? Which is going to help with the calorie burning process and make it easier to stay in a deficit. And not only that, it's going to help you feel better, perform better, and it helps with things like longevity and aging as well. So there's tons of benefits. And number four is going to be checking your progress, but not just relying on the scale. Because if you're just relying on the scale as your only way of progress checking, it's not reliable, right? On a short-term basis, because there's tons of variables that go into play, like water retention, for example. So you want to focus short-term on other things like energy levels, strength in the gym, how your clothes are fitting, right? Because those things not only allow you to celebrate those small wins, but it also gives you an idea of whether you're moving in the right direction, and it also gives you another sort of boost of motivation. Number five is hydrate yourself strategically and manage your stress. Right, you need to be drinking lots of water because it's just great for your function, and there's nothing worse than showing up to the gym and you're dehydrated, you're low energy, you're sluggish. So you need to be drinking lots of water, right? And you can actually utilize water. I like to do 500 milliliters before you have a meal so you can distinguish the difference between thirst and hunger, which makes it easier to stay in the deficit, right? So you don't go overboard and overconsume on calories that you didn't really need, okay? And then it's the same with stress, right? You need to be managing your stress, getting good recovery, allowing yourself to rest adequately outside of work. You need to meditate if that helps, because if you're cortisol is elevated and you're in a constant state of inflammation, it's going to make it very, very difficult to actually burn that fat and actually build quality muscle mass. Your body's literally going to be fighting against you if you aren't recovering properly. And number 6 is going to be prioritize whole foods. Now, this is something that obviously most people speak about, but I still think it's underrated, right? The amount of people that still go, oh, calories in, calories out. And it's like, okay, but do you not want to make sure you're hitting your micronutrients? Make sure you're hitting your protein goals, right? Making sure you're getting enough food in so you're not constantly hungry on the cut. Like, the second you start looking at the boxes that you need to tick off, you start to realize there's not really much room for, empty calories or foods that aren't going to tick one of those boxes and help me hit my macro goal, right? So it does require you to be slightly more intentional. And that's when you just start to understand the importance of real single ingredient whole foods, because better protein, better bioavailability, better micronutrients, and it's just going to allow you to perform so much better. Number 7 is make sleep a priority, right? Don't make the same mistake I did at the beginning of my fitness journey when I was training extremely hard. I was eating the right foods, but my recovery was just terrible, right? I just completely overlooked it. I'm young, right? I was younger back then when I first started, obviously. And I just tell myself, oh, it's fine. I don't need to worry about sleep. And it's just not worth it. Like, it's just not worth it, right? You feel terrible, less gains. Your session the next day is normally compromised and you're not going to be as strong because you didn't get good sleep, right? It's just not worth it, right? You want to make sure you're dialing it in just like it's training, just like how you would eat clean foods. It's just as important, because the micro tears, you cause them in the gym during your training sessions, but you actually regrow and repair those muscle fibers when you're sleeping. Number 8 is learn how to say no. If you can't say no to certain events, foods, or situations, you aren't going to get lean. It's as simple as that, because getting lean requires you to have more intention behind what you're doing. Because think about it. If you want to achieve a result that's above average, you can't act average and think you're going to get a very specific result. So understand that you do need some level of intention and you do need to be able to hold yourself accountable, because if you do overindulge constantly and you just feed into every opportunity that you have, you're not going to get lean. And number 9, which is the last and final one, which I've just realized I said 10 at the beginning because I combined 2 together, but it's all good, is fix your environment, right? And I mean this in the sense of both people and food, right? Because if you're around people who are all 25% body fat and you're around loads of junk food, loads of, biscuits, loads of cakes, loads of rubbish, if you're in that environment constantly, what do you think the chances are of you getting to 10% body fat are, right? Very low. It's going to be very difficult. If you're not in the right environment that's conducive to your success, it's going to make it 100 times more difficult, which, isn't necessary. And the reason this is so important is because if you are someone who struggles with cravings or temptations, out of sight, out of mind, right? You don't want to be constantly tempted by the foods and the snacks that you have around you. That's just ridiculous. You're just setting yourself up for failure. So your environment definitely matters. That being said, if you follow those things on top of the basics and the fundamentals, you will get lean, right? Start doing those things. It's going to click. It's going to be more enjoyable, more sustainable, and so much easier, right? And if you guys do want one-on-one coaching or you have any questions, check out the description below. You can DM me the word change on Instagram or ask me any question. I'm there to pretty much answer all of you guys' DMs. I'll be more than happy to help with anything. And you can also go ahead and book a call with me down below if that's something you want to do as well. That being said, I see you guys in the next one.